I came home to find HOA President Margaret holding a knife. My wheelchair-bound daughter bleeding from a rib wound. Margaret didn't know I was the county sheriff. What she meant is punishment for a ramp violation exposed a nationwide discrimination network. My 12-year-old's courage brought justice to thousands. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also, like and subscribe for more stories. As the knife gleamed in the afternoon sun as it sliced through my daughter's favorite yellow dress, cutting into her ribs, I heard Emma's scream from across the parking lot. A sound no father should ever hear. A sound that turned my blood to ice and then to fire. I was still in uniform, just getting home from my shift as county sheriff. What I saw made time stop. My 12-year-old daughter, wheelchair-bound since the car accident that took her mother's life 2 years ago, was backed against our garage door. Standing over her with a kitchen knife was Margaret Chen, our HOA president, the woman everyone called HOA Karen behind her back. Blood was seeping through Emma's dress. Her face was pale with shock and pain. Her wheelchair was tipped at an odd angle where Margaret had shoved it. You people think you can just ignore the rules. Margaret was screaming, her face twisted with rage. This is a respectable neighborhood. Your daughter left her wheelchair ramp out for 3 days. I didn't remember crossing the distance. One moment I was by my patrol car. The next I had Margaret's wrist locked in my grip, the knife clattering to the concrete. My other hand was already on my radio. 1078. Officer needs assistance. 4425, Maple Ridge Drive. Assault with a deadly weapon on a minor. Victim is injured. Suspect in custody. Margaret's face went from red to white in an instant. She looked at my badge, then at my face, and I watched the realization hit her like a freight train. You're the sheriff," she whispered. "Yes, ma'am. And you just stabbed my disabled daughter over a wheelchair ramp." 3 hours earlier, this nightmare had started with something so small, so meaningless. Emma had been outside painting. Since losing her mother and her ability to walk, art had become her escape. She'd set up her easel on our driveway, working on a portrait of a butterfly, her mother's favorite. The portable wheelchair ramp, the one that cost me 2 months of overtime to afford, was extended down our front steps. Margaret had walked by on her daily inspection of the neighborhood. She stopped, her lips pressed into that thin line I'd come to dread. "That ramp has been out for 3 days," she'd said to Emma, her voice dripping with disdain. My daughter, sweet Emma, with her mother's kind eyes, had looked up from her painting. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Chen. Dad's been working double shifts. We haven't had time to put it away. I needed to get in and out of the house. The HOA regulations clearly state that all temporary structures must be removed within 24 hours. This is your final warning." Emma had tried to explain, but it's not temporary. "I need it every day. I can't walk, Mrs. Chen. The doctor said I might never. I don't care about your excuses. Rules are rules. If that ramp isn't gone by tomorrow, I'm finding your father $500 per day." That's when Emma had said something that would haunt me. Something so innocent, so pure, so much like her mother. "My mom used to say that rules should serve people, not hurt them. Maybe we could ask the HOA to make an exception for accessibility." Margaret's face had turned crimson. "Your mother isn't here anymore, is she? Maybe if your father focused more on being a responsible homeowner instead of playing hero in that uniform, your family wouldn't be such a burden on this community." Emma had started crying then, not from anger, but from grief. The wound of losing her mother was still so raw. I knew this because when I'd arrived home later, I'd found her still on the driveway, her painting abandoned, tears dried on her cheeks. That's when I'd made my mistake. That's when I'd walked over to Margaret's house to have a conversation. Margaret lived in the biggest house on the block, a pristine white colonial with perfectly manicured hedges. She answered the door with that same superior smirk. "Sheriff Thompson, here to gravel for an exception." I kept my voice level professional. "Mrs. Chun, I'm here to request a reasonable accommodation under the Fair Housing Act. My daughter is disabled. That ramp is medical equipment, not a decoration. Medical equipment should be stored inside when not in use. She uses it every time she enters or exits the house. That's the definition of in use. Margaret had crossed her arms. I've been HOA president for 15 years. I know the law better than you, Sheriff. Your daughter's condition doesn't give you the right to violate our community standards. Community standards? My voice had risen despite my best efforts. We're talking about a child in a wheelchair. We're talking about property values. Your eyesore of a ramp brings down the entire neighborhood. Several residents have complained. Which residents? That's confidential. I felt my jaw clench. Mrs. Chun, I'm asking you. Neighbor to neighbor, human to human. Please don't find us over a wheelchair ramp. Emma has been through enough. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You know what I think, Sheriff? I think you and your daughter need to learn that living in a nice neighborhood comes with responsibilities. Maybe if this hurts your wallet enough, you'll move somewhere more appropriate. There are facilities for people like her. The words had hit me like bullets. Facilities like Emma was something to be hidden away. Get off my property. Margaret had said before I file a complaint against you for harassment. I'd left shaking with rage, knowing that if I stayed one more second, I'd say something I'd regret. But Margaret hadn't been satisfied with that victory. She decided to take matters into her own hands. According to the neighbors who testified later, Margaret had marched over to our house that afternoon with a kitchen knife. Her plan, as she'd later tell the police, was to disable the ramp by cutting through the rubber grip strips. She'd make it unusable, she'd reasoned, and then we'd have to remove it. Emma had rolled outside to get her painting supplies. She'd seen Margaret attacking the ramp with the knife and had done what any 12-year-old would do. She'd protested. Mrs. Chun, please stop. That's my ramp. I need that. Margaret had whirled on her. You need to learn some respect, you little brat. Emma, my brave, foolish girl, had tried to position her wheelchair between Margaret and the ramp. She'd been trying to protect the one thing that gave her independence. That's when Margaret had shoved the wheelchair. Emma had fallen sideways, trapped by her own safety belt. And when she tried to steady herself by grabbing the wheelchair's arm, Margaret had lashed out with the knife. I didn't mean to cut her. Margaret would later sob to the police. She grabbed at me. I was just trying to push her away. But intentions don't matter when a child is bleeding. The ambulance arrived 4 minutes after my call. Emma was conscious but in shock. The EMTs, Rick and Paula, people I'd worked with on dozens of calls, moved with swift efficiency. Shallow laceration approximately 4 in long, Paula reported as she worked. No signs of penetration into the thoracic cavity. She's lucky, Chief. Lucky. My daughter had been attacked with a knife and she was lucky. Rick caught my eye as they loaded Emma into the ambulance. We've got her, John. She's going to be okay. But you need to stay here. Let us handle her. You have a suspect to deal with. He was right. I had a job to do. 2 patrol cars had arrived along with Detective Sarah Martinez, my second in command. Sarah took one look at the scene, the knife on the ground. Margaret handcuffed and sitting on our front steps. Emma's blood on the concrete and her face hardened. Tell me what happened, Chief. I walked her through it. My voice steady despite the storm inside me. Professional by the book. Every detail documented. I want you to take lead on this investigation. I told Sarah. I'm too close. I can't be objective. Sarah nodded. Already assumed that, sir. But I need your statement first. From the top. As I gave my statement, Margaret started talking, shouting. Really? This is ridiculous. I'm the victim here. That girl has been violating HOA rules for days. I was just trying to protect our property values. She's making the whole neighborhood look like some kind of a poverty-stricken trailer park with that ugly ramp. Officer James Riley, a rookie who joined the force 6 months ago, was staring at Margaret with unconcealed disgust. Ma'am, you need to stop talking. I will not stop talking. I have rights. I'm a respected member of this community. I volunteer at the library. I organize the neighborhood watch. I've done more for this community than that man ever has. Sarah stepped forward. Margaret Chin, you are under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon on a minor, child endangerment, and battery causing bodily harm. You have the right to remain silent. I know my rights. My husband is a lawyer. We'll sue you all. We'll sue the department. This is police brutality. You're only arresting me because your boss is upset. Sarah's voice never wavered. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. I already said my husband is an attorney. He's going to destroy you people. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand these rights as I've explained them to you? Margaret's mouth snapped shut. For the first time, fear flickered across her face. I want my lawyer. Smart choice, Sarah said, then nodded to Officer Riley. Book her. Full processing. Photos of the scene. Photos of the victim's injuries. The weapon goes to evidence. This gets done perfectly. As they led Margaret to the patrol car, she twisted back to look at me. You'll regret this. You're abusing your power. Everyone will know what kind of man you really are. I said nothing. I just watched as they drove away. Then I got in my car and drove to the hospital where my daughter was waiting for me. Emma was in room 304, propped up on pillows, her side bandaged. She looked so small in that hospital bed, so fragile. But when she saw me, she smiled.
Dad, I'm okay.
I sat beside her and took her hand, careful not to disturb the four. Baby girl, I'm so sorry. I should have been there. I should have. You couldn't have known, Dad. It's not your fault. I knew Margaret was angry. I should have taken it more seriously. Emma squeezed my hand. She was crazy, Dad. You can't protect me from crazy. Dr. Patel came in, then, a woman I'd known for years from various emergency calls. Sheriff Thompson. Emma's going to be fine. The wound is superficial. It looks worse than it is. We've cleaned and stitched it, given her antibiotics and a tetanus shot. She'll be sore for a while, but there's no permanent damage. Relief washed over me like a wave. Thank you, doctor. However, Dr. Patel continued, her expression darkening. I need to document this as suspected child abuse for the hospital records. It's protocol. And Sheriff Emma told me what happened. That woman came at a child in a wheelchair with a knife over an HOA violation. That's correct. Dr. Patel shook her head. I've seen a lot in this job, but this is something else. Emma. Sweetheart, you're very brave. Your mother would be proud of you. Emma's eyes filled with tears at the mention of her mother. You knew my mom. She volunteered here in the children's ward every Christmas. She'd read stories to the kids. She had the kindest heart. Dr. Patel looked at me. Both of you have been through so much. I'm truly sorry this happened. The news spread through our small town like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew that HOA President Margaret Chun had attacked the sheriff's disabled daughter with a knife. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My phone didn't stop ringing. Fellow officers checking in, neighbors I barely knew offering support. Emma's school principal calling to see if she needed counseling. The mayor himself left a voicemail expressing his shock and promising that justice would be served. But it was the people who showed up at our door that truly moved me. Old Mrs. Patterson from 3 houses down arrived with a casserole. I never liked that woman, she said firmly. She fined my grandson $200 for chalking hopscotch on his own driveway. A child playing hopscotch. This has been coming for a long time. The Johnsons, a young couple who'd moved in last year, brought flowers for Emma. Margaret tried to fine us for having a pride flag. Mr. Johnson said quietly, said it wasn't family-friendly. We filed a discrimination complaint, but the HOA board backed her up. By noon, there were 17 casseroles on our kitchen counter and a pile of cards and gifts for Emma in the living room. But the most surprising visitor was David Chun, Margaret's own husband. I answered the door to find him standing there, his face haggard, his expensive suit wrinkled. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Sheriff Thompson, may I come in? I wanted to slam the door in his face. This was the man who'd shaped Margaret's cruelty, who'd backed her every tyrannical decision. But something in his expression stopped me. Make it quick. He stepped inside, his hands clasped in front of him like a penitent sinner. I came to apologize for my wife, for everything. Your wife stabbed my daughter. I know. And I don't have words for how sorry I am. I've been married to Margaret for 23 years. I've watched her become more and more obsessed with control, with rules, with power. I should have stopped her. I should have gotten her help. Instead, I enabled her. Why are you telling me this? David's voice cracked. Because I'm ashamed. Because what she did to Emma is unforgivable. Because I'm not going to defend her. I've already told the prosecutor I'll testify against her if needed. I filed for divorce and I'm resigning from the HOA board. I stared at him. You're serious completely. Margaret needs help. Professional help. But more than that, she needs to face consequences for what she's done. No husband, no lawyer, no amount of money is going to save her from this. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. This is a check for $50,000. It's for Emma's medical expenses, for counseling, for anything she needs. I know money doesn't fix what Margaret did, but it's all I can offer. I didn't take the envelope. Keep your money. Emma has insurance. What I want is for your wife to never come near my daughter again. You have my word. I'm selling the house. Margaret won't be coming back to this neighborhood whether she makes bail or not. David's eyes were red. Sheriff, I have a daughter too. She's in college now. If someone had done to her what Margaret did to Emma, I would want to kill them. I understand if you hate me. I don't hate you, Mr. Chin. Pity you. He nodded slowly. That's fair. I pity myself too. He set the envelope on the table by the door. Please take it. Not for you, for Emma. Let her use it for something that makes her happy. Let some good come from this nightmare. After he left, I opened the envelope. The check was real. And on a separate piece of paper, David had written, I'm so sorry. I failed as a husband and as a human being. Please tell Emma she's a brave, wonderful girl. The next weeks were a blur of statements, interviews, and court appearances. As sheriff, I had to recuse myself from anything directly related to the case. But I couldn't avoid being a witness. Margaret's trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses, video from a neighbor's doorbell camera, Emma's injuries, Margaret's own recorded statements admitting to the attack, even as she tried to justify it. Her lawyer, a slick corporate attorney from the city, tried every angle. He claimed Margaret was under extreme stress. He argued that Emma had provoked her. He suggested that the knife had accidentally cut Emma during a legitimate attempt to remove an illegal structure. None of it worked. The jury took less than 2 hours to find Margaret guilty on all counts. Assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment, and battery. The judge, a stern woman named Harriet Blackwell, showed no mercy. Mrs. Chen, Judge Blackwell said, her voice cutting through the courtroom like a blade, you attacked a disabled child. Not in a moment of passion. Not in self-defense, but in a calculated attempt to enforce your petty interpretation of neighborhood rules. You showed no remorse when arrested. You showed no compassion when confronted with your victim's injuries. You have demonstrated yourself to be a danger to the community you claim to protect. Margaret sat frozen, her face blank. I hereby sentence you to 15 years in state prison. Additionally, you are ordered to pay $100,000 in restitution to the victim and her family. You will have no contact with the victim or her family upon your release. You are stripped of all HOA authority, and I am recommending that the state investigate the HOA board for enabling your behavior. Margaret finally reacted. 15 years for a scratch. This is insane. She's fine. She's totally fine. Judge Blackwell's gavel came down hard. Mrs. Chun, you will not speak. The victim's scratch required 18 stitches. She will have permanent scarring. She has nightmares. She's afraid to go outside her own home. You didn't just hurt her body. You hurt her spirit. And you did it to a child who had already lost her mother. Bailiff removed the defendant. As they led Margaret away, she screamed, "This is discrimination. This is a conspiracy. You're all against me because I tried to maintain standards." The courtroom doors closed on her voice. Emma, sitting beside me in her wheelchair, squeezed my hand. "Is it really over, Dad?" "It's over, baby girl. She can't hurt you anymore." But the story wasn't over. Not yet. 3 days after the sentencing, I received a call from Detective Martinez. "Chief, you need to come down to the station. There's something you need to see. When I arrived, Sarah led me to the conference room. Spread across the table were dozens of documents, complaints, letters, emails. What is this? This, Sarah said, is what we found when we searched Margaret's house as part of the investigation. Chief, she's been documenting every single resident in the neighborhood for years. She has files on everyone. Violations, real and imagined, private information, photos taken without consent. It's disturbing. I flipped through the files. There were pictures of children playing, couples arguing, people coming home late. Margaret had notes on everything. Johnson family allows grass to exceed 3 inches. Fine. Scheduled. Patterson's grandchildren, too. Loud. Investigating noise. Ordinance violation. Thompson family wheelchair ramp eyesore must be dealt with. Must be dealt with. I read aloud. She planned this. It gets worse. Sarah pulled out another folder. She was coordinating with other HOA presidents in the county. They have a group. They call themselves the Standards Keepers. They share tactics for forcing out undesirable residents. That's a direct quote. My blood ran cold. Undesirable poor people. Disabled people. Minorities, anyone they think brings down property values. Chief, this isn't just about Emma. Margaret was part of something bigger. We've referred this to the FBI for potential civil rights violations. I sat down heavily. How many people has she hurt? We're still counting, but based on these files, dozens, maybe hundreds over the years. Sarah's expression was grim. You stumbled onto something much darker than one woman with a knife, Chief. This is systematic harassment and discrimination hiding behind HOA rules. The fallout was enormous. The FBI investigation uncovered a network of HOA presidents across 3 counties who had been deliberately targeting vulnerable residents. Fines, liens, forced sales, all designed to push out anyone who didn't fit their vision of a perfect neighborhood. 17 people were eventually charged, including 4 other HOA presidents. The story made national news. Suddenly, Emma wasn't just a victim. She was the face of a movement to reform HOA laws and protect residents from abuse. Reporters wanted interviews. Advocacy groups wanted Emma to speak at rallies. A senator introduced legislation called Emma's Law that would prohibit HOAs from discriminating against disability accommodations. Through it all, Emma remained remarkably composed. She did one interview with a local news station, and what she said broke hearts across the country. I don't hate Mrs. Chun, Emma said, sitting in her wheelchair with quiet dignity. I feel sorry for her. She was so focused on rules that she forgot about people. She forgot about kindness. My mom always said that the measure of a society is how it treats its most vulnerable. I think Mrs. Chun forgot that. I hope she remembers it in prison. The interviewer, a hardened journalist who'd covered wars, had tears in his eyes. 6 months later, on a bright Saturday morning, something extraordinary happened. I woke to the sound of power tools and voices. When I looked outside, I saw dozens of people in our yard. Neighbors, strangers, construction workers, all working together. I went outside in my bathrobe, confused. What's going on? Old Mrs. Patterson waved at me. We're building Emma a proper ramp, a permanent one. We took up a collection, raised $15,000. Professional contractors are donating their time. I was speechless. But the HOA? There is no more HOA, Mr. Johnson said with a grin. We voted to dissolve it last month. Did you miss the email? We're now a voluntary neighborhood association. No mandatory fees, no ridiculous rules, and definitely no fines for wheelchair ramps. By the end of the day, Emma had a beautiful wooden ramp with handrails, painted her favorite shade of blue. It was built to code, built to last, and built with love. When Emma rolled down it for the first time, the entire neighborhood cheered. She stopped at the bottom, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you all so much. Mrs. Patterson bent down and hugged her. Sweetheart, this neighborhood should have protected you from the beginning. We're sorry we didn't. We're sorry we let Margaret's cruelty go unchallenged for so long. But we're here now and we're not going anywhere. That evening, as I tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at me with her mother's eyes. Dad, Do you think Mom would be proud of me? I brushed the hair from her forehead. Baby girl, your mother would be so incredibly proud of you. You faced something terrible and you came through it with grace and strength. You turned your pain into something that helped other people. That's exactly what she would have done.
I miss her.
I miss her, too. Every single day, Emma was quiet for a moment. Dad, I've been thinking. I want to use Mr. Chen's money, the $50,000, to start a foundation to help other disabled kids who are being discriminated against. I want to call it the Sarah Thompson Memorial Foundation after Mom. My throat tightened. Emma, that's beautiful. Mom believed in helping people. So do I. And I think that's the best way to make sure something good comes from all of this. She smiled. Plus, it would really make Mrs. Chen mad to know her husband's money is helping people she wanted to hurt. I laughed despite myself. You know what? You're absolutely right. A year later, the Sarah Thompson Memorial Foundation held its first annual fundraiser. Emma, now 13 and more confident than ever, gave the opening speech to a crowd of 200 people. When Mrs. Chen hurt me, Emma said, her voice clear and strong. She thought she was protecting her neighborhood from someone who didn't fit her vision of perfection. But what she didn't understand is that a neighborhood isn't about perfect lawns or matching mailboxes. It's about people taking care of each other. It's about kindness. It's about making sure everyone has a place to belong. The crowd rose to their feet applauding. I watched from the side of the room, my chest swelling with pride. My daughter, this incredible, resilient, compassionate young woman, had taken the worst day of her life and transformed it into hope for others. Later that night, after the guests had gone home, Emma and I sat on our new ramp, looking up at the stars. Dad, do you ever wonder what Mrs. Chen thinks about in prison? I don't know, sweetheart. Why? I hope she thinks about what she did. I hope she understands why it was wrong. Not because of the law or the punishment, but because she hurt someone. I hope she learns to care about people more than rules. I pulled Emma close. You're a better person than I am. I'm not sure I can forgive her. I don't know if I forgive her either, Emma said honestly. But I don't want to carry hate around. Mom wouldn't want that. She'd want me to focus on building something good. We sat in comfortable silence. Father and daughter, survivors of a nightmare that had somehow led to healing. In the distance, I could hear the neighborhood kids playing, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Mrs. Patterson was walking her dog. The Johnsons were grilling dinner. Life went on, but it went on better, kinder, more aware. Margaret Chen had tried to enforce her vision of a perfect community through fear and control. She had failed spectacularly. In her place, Emma had shown everyone what a real community looked like. Imperfect, messy, diverse, and bound together by compassion. And as I sat there with my daughter under the stars, I realized that this moment of peace and connection was the real victory. Margaret was in prison. Yes, justice had been served. But more than that, Emma had emerged from darkness, stronger, kinder, and more determined to make the world better. That wheelchair ramp that Margaret had hated so much, it became a symbol. Other families in other neighborhoods saw the news coverage and stood up to their own HOAs. Laws changed, policies reformed, and it all started because one 12-year-old girl refused to hide her disability or accept someone else's cruelty as normal. I love you, Emma, I said. I love you too, Dad. And in that moment, sitting on a blue wheelchair ramp under a sky full of stars, surrounded by a community that had finally learned what truly mattered, everything felt right with the world. The wound on Emma's side had healed into a scar. But unlike Margaret, who carried her wounds on the inside and let them poison her soul, Emma wore her scar as a reminder, not of what broke her, but of what she survived and how she chose to respond. With love, with strength, with an unbreakable belief that people matter more than rules, and kindness matters more than perfection. That's the lesson Margaret never learned. But Emma, she taught it to everyone.